It's Chocky Chat. It's Friday the 13th, and I hope it's all going well for everybody. It's episode 160. It's 160 episodes. Very crazy. We're midway through December. I know everybody's feeling the pain. I know everybody's tired. There's lots of people message me saying, I'm burnt out. How do you cope? What do you do? I'll answer some of that tonight. Keelan, hello. Nettie, I can see you. How are you? Who else we got? Isle Bakes, hello, just over the water from me. So it's a nice moon out there tonight, isn't it? If you're down on the south coast. Evelyn, Chocodilic, hello. How Billy there? Scottish Chocolates. There were some nice bars today. Everybody's posting amazing stuff. Really, truly amazing stuff. I spent a good chunk of today just scrolling through Instagram and no, I had a bit of a lazy day today. It's all right. I've had a very busy week. A bit of a lazy day today. It's all good, isn't it? So Nico, hello. Chocolates by Neander. Finally, it's Friday in Chocky Chat crew. Yes, it is. Grange Chocolates. How are you? Karen King, I can see. Good evening, everybody. Mrs. So Sassy's joined us. Hello, Mrs. So Sassy. She's taking a break as well. We've had a busy week. It's been a really busy week. Who else is there? Savoury Eats, Michelle there, Savoury Eats in Arizona. You got some stuff on the way to you shortly, I think. So, Temper, Kathy, how are you? Good evening, everybody. How is everybody? Who else? Gina there, Surfer Lake Chocolates, I think, down in New Zealand. Gosh, lots of people here tonight. Paula's joined us. Hi, Paula. Firstly, can I say thank you to everybody that supported in buying Sophia's products, Sophia's chocolate bars. She did sell out. We did buy some more moulds. She's been trying to top up this week, but schoolwork and other things going on, so we will get those done. But yeah, thank you. She's quite overwhelmed by the number of orders, actually, and pretty much sold out. And then she did some more, and they sold out. So yeah, really good. She's a happy girl. And there she is, Sophia So Sassy. I'm going to send her a wave. Just had dinner with her, but I'll send her a wave anyway. So, Alice absolutely loved the moulds that you sprayed, I think, today or yesterday. I think really magnificent work. Really good. So busy, I've had to ration my chocolate for my next market. How do I clone myself? That is a challenge. I've had a couple of messages this week. So just people saying like they feel burnt out or they just feel like absolutely exhausted. I think it's absolutely perfectly natural and normal to kind of feel burnt out this time of year. I go through it. I have gone through it throughout my career. I think the challenge with December is we squash a huge amount of work into, it's not the whole of December, is it? It's like the first 2 weeks. We absolutely pile it all in because we've got pre-orders, we've got all these things. And you kind of, you get to the end of it, you just feel a little bit deflated. It is hard work. How to combat it is, I think if you're feeling burnt out, I think the first step is really recognizing that it's actually okay. You can't be in love with doing this all the time. It just doesn't work like that. And I think consider yourself an artist. You just can't be on 100% foot on the gas all the time. I think sometimes you need to take a break. I regularly post to people. I regularly post saying it's okay to take a break. It's absolutely fine to take a break. If you're spraying and it's not working, it's absolutely pointless to just keep going because that's when you start making mistakes and that's when you start hating it. It's not that you've fallen out of love with it. It's that you just kind of like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't enjoy it. That's the point where you take a break. Burnout normally is the result of I've got too much to do and I can't plan. And the only way really to deal with that is to stop and take a break, even when you're really busy. Just to take a half day. Just to bunk off for the day, will pay dividends, truly. Who else have we got? Hashim there in Bahrain. Hello. Surreal and Beautiful's joined us. In terms of, selling out as well, you've had to ration your chocolates for your next month. It's okay to sell out. What you don't want to do is get to the end and have lots left over, right? That's a completely different problem. And it's a bit like the Valentine's or with like Halloween. You want to make enough for your sales, but you don't have extra because nobody wants to buy Christmas chocolates on the 26th or 27th, right? You might be able to repackage them and sell them as a different kind of name, but it's okay to ration your stuff. It's okay to run out. It's okay to run out. that means you've got a queue. Now you can produce something else, give it a different name, and rebrand it and resell it, and give yourself some space to make some more product, right? It's a really lovely thing to create a queue. Like, nothing drives sales like saying, well, I've run out, you'll have to wait. Because if they are truly supportive, they'll wait, and it's quite nice having those messages saying, when are you making more, when are you doing more, when are you doing more. And the true answer is, I think if you're a home producer, it's like, well, when I'm ready, right? And that's not an arrogant, nonchalant answer. It's when I'm ready, when I've got them done, right? So I think, don't worry about disappointing, right? I think there's nothing better than having a queue. Absolutely nothing better than having a queue. Tells the world that you're successful and you are doing a great job, right? Nothing drives sales like a queue. I've run out, you'll have to wait, right? Paul is saying, I've made over 2,000 chocolates a week for the last 2 weeks and going to run out in the shop tomorrow. Yeah, there's only so much you can plan. You know, there is a difference between having a target and a goal, right? The goal would be, to have 200,000 made. The target would be including next year as well. And the target next year is like, right, we'll make that 2,500, we'll make that 3,000 a week. What do I need to do to do that? I've said this every December for the last 3 years, okay? Right now, you should be making notes. You need a notebook. You need to write down not the things that went wrong, because that just sends you down the rabbit hole of dissecting everything that you didn't like. What you need to do is start writing positively. What went well? What did I do that I would do differently? And that's not, if it didn't sell, it didn't sell. That might not be you. That might be the customer. That could be many reasons that force that hand. If it didn't sell, what did you think about, what is it that happened that it didn't sell, and what can you change about that? What can I do about that to change that round? If I was going to do this same December again, what more would I need? What more equipment would I need? What would my plan be? Like, if you don't start writing this down, when you get to January and February and March, and we've got Easter out of the way, and we've got Valentine's out of the way, and we've got Mother's Day, and we've got all those other events out of the way, if you sit down in May and say, right, what do I want Christmas to look like? It's gone. You'll have no memory of it at all. All you'll remember is the money that you made and the difficulties that you had. Right now, you need to write down, like I did a design today. I've sprayed some mould today, did some designs today. Quite like that one. That was Red Galaxy, which I backed with, this is titanium free white. So it's very slightly translucent, and I quite like that one. These are chocolates that I've got to go on my way next week, so we do like this one. So, and I was looking at what are the weights and volumes of what I get out of a mould. So what do I get out of a spray cup? Spray cup is 13 centiliters, 13 grams. And does that cover one bowl? And if I'm doing dots, so that would, about 140 would give me 11/12 moulds, depending on how I'm spraying. And it's just writing those notes down. What is it that what did I make? If I made 22 kilos of caramel, did that last me or didn't it? And what did that look like next year? Because if next year I want to make 30 kilos, what's the recipe for that? You need to worry about the costs. What's that recipe? What does it look like? Have I got a big enough pan? Have I got enough big? And it's writing all those notes down. Those positives are, if I was going to do this again, what would I do differently and how could I do it better, right? Not what did I not like, because that's easy. It's easy writing that stuff down. And actually, like I said, if you write down all the things that you didn't like, you'll just go down the rabbit hole of dissecting everything, and that will just discourage you hugely. Did that as well. That's the silver green sheen. We like that one. We like that one. We like that one a lot. Been a busy week though. It's been a busy week. There's lots of people running out, but absolutely, do you know what? It's all good. Andrew's there, styling chocolates. Mo the baker, how are you? Ellen's joined us. Chocy Shells, how you doing, Michelle? Bruce there in California, I can see. Nathan, Napa Valley. Gosh, there's people all over the place. In my warm kitchen, 23, 24 degrees, should I put shelled moulds and decorated moulds in the fridge right away, or leave them to set at room temperature? Sydney, I wouldn't, 22, 23 degrees. Whilst I will make chocolate at that temperature, you won't, that's not cool enough to make the shells retract, okay? We changed that word retract to shrink, okay? When chocolate's got abundance of beta crystals in there, that's when it's in its tempered state, right? So we've got all those chains of cocoa butter beta crystals. They're all lined up. When they dip below 14 degrees, we call it retraction, which is kind of a little bit of a posh word for shrink, right? And retraction depends which side of the mould you're looking at, really, doesn't it? Like chefs and their posh words. If that chocolate dips below 14 degrees, that chocolate will shrink and then it will come out of the shell, it will come out of the mould, okay? So whilst I will make chocolates at 22, 23 degrees, we will leave them at room temperature with some air circulating, just so that the chocolate goes dull. Probably leave it 10 minutes or so, then I would use the fridge. If you want to leave your chocolates in a room overnight, 22 or 23 degrees, it's likely that they're going to sink back in. The other challenge you have with chocolate is it's always expanding and moving. Humidity causes it to expand, and it's microscopic, you can't see it, but it's the difference between, like when I got this mould here, some big love hearts this week. It's the difference between it, and that's retracted. But if I push on it, I'll probably break it now. If I push on it, it's 40% humidity in here at a minute, so it's quite dry. Okay, that's retracted. But if the temperature goes up a little bit and the chocolate gets warm, the chocolate becomes malleable. And if the humidity goes up, that will sink back into the mould, and they'll just end up with like horrible marks all over it. So 22, 23 degrees, a little bit too warm. To leave chocolates out overnight. I would suggest that they would sink back into the mould. So if you do put them in the fridge, the other thing is that whilst it depends on the fridge, they'll be fine in the fridge. It's when you bring them out of the fridge that you get all the condensation cling to it, and that will cause you another problem. So if you can find a way to drop the temperature of that room to like 20, 21, yeah, absolutely fine. So Paul, you're piping truffles now to offer something. Yeah, good call. Bonbon Nutgrun, how are you? Nadia's joined us. I'm finally looking into what it would take to start selling next year. There's so much to consider. It's very daunting, especially since it would be on top of a full-time job. Alex eats chocolate. Small amounts, little steps, you know. If you have a target of selling 50 boxes, right? Have a target of making 50 boxes, and what does that look like, and line yourself up. I think something that people do when they run a little business from home is they say, right, well, I'm going to do 100 boxes, and when they realise that they're going to do more than that, they feel like they've missed an opportunity. But it's a bit like buying a car. Like if you go out to buy a car and you say the car's 10,000, and you say to the salesman, will you take 8? And he says yes, and you walk away and you say, oh, I wish I'd offered 7. Well, you didn't, so you can't think like that. If your target is to do 100 boxes and you sell 100 boxes, win. There are other opportunities, but there are things to learn. What you don't want to do is think I'll sell 100 boxes and then suddenly have a thought saying, what if I do another 50? And then you don't sell those, you're on the back end of the psychological draw, right? So is it daunting at home? I think it's planning. I think you need to know your shell weights, your mould weights, your fillings. Have some confidence in your fillings. I say it's a little bit easier for me. I still have to write all this stuff down. Like I know how much butter it is to paint one of those. I know how much chocolate I need to shell it, so I know the shell weights. I know how much filling I need to make in terms of weight. So whether it's a ganache, whether it's a caramel, same density, but roughly it's 290. We call it 300 grams. 300 grams is going to fill each mould if it's just one filling, one layer. If it's 2 layers, it starts to get a little bit more complicated. And I know how much chocolate I need to cap with. So if I've got the recipe, I can cost that. If I know how much, like 140 gram, if I was spraying just one colour, that's Aqua Lagoon. I'd probably get 12/13 if I'm really again, depends on the needle size, and it depends how much I crank the, if I crank the pressure really, really high, we're going to get overspray. It's going to cost me more butter, but I'll be able to do it quicker. Or do I dial it back a little bit, take a little bit more time, and I don't waste as much? Only you can work that out. It's knowing those costs. And once I've got my box and I know the box size, I've got my outer packaging, you should be able to start putting all those things in line. In terms of producing them in the kitchen, food hygiene is food hygiene. It's clean surfaces, clean equipment, traceability, where did I buy it from, when did I buy it, where is it logged, what's the recipe, what did it go into, all that kind of stuff. But you can solve all those things, Alex, as you go along. But you've got to start. You've got to start. You've got to start. It's pick a number and say, right, I'd like to sell that next year, or I would like to sell this many for Valentine's, I'd like to sell this many for Mother's Day. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people that make things way too complicated, too many layered fillings, too many complications with what they're doing. I do collections. We do boxes of 15 now, so it's 15 different flavours, a little bit more work for me. I like doing it that way. It suits me. The people that buy from me know that I'm always coming up with something new. I don't really like sitting on the same fillings over and over and over, although things like the mint caramel, the orange molasses, there's the salt caramel, some fillings out of that 15, half of them are regulars. We might change the design slightly, but you got to pick a number and say, right, I'm going to make this much, and what are the steps to get there? And I think documenting that is really straightforward. Exactly the same this time of year. You need to be starting to write down what went well, what did I like, were there any things that didn't sell, were there things that I had difficulty with, how would I do them differently? And that's the useful information. When you start looking at that page of writing in September time, it's there, it's in front of you. While you're busy now, what are your weights? What are your measures? What are your fillings? What are your pans? What have you got enough of this, and this, right? Sometimes it could just be, I need more of those, right? Or I need a bigger melting tank. And, if you've got sales going throughout the year, whatever money you make, you want to invest a little bit back into making you being able to create more product, right? So, got to keep going. I'm making Bakewell tart inspired bonbon. I'm looking for the best type of cherries to make the cherry jam layer at the top. And the idea is on a good cherry, Morello cherries, without a doubt, black Morello cherries. A little bit more. There's another one as well, actually. You can find, they're called Griotines. They're normally in a jar. They're an alcohol called eau de vie, and we always use those through the restaurants. And we puree them. We didn't use the liquor, but we puree them down and then make a pat de wheat from that. So, Griotine cherries. Some of the tinned jarred ones, really, really good. I think the challenge with cherry is you might need a flavour drop, because cherry is one of those, unless you're using Griotines or Morellos that have been soaked and steeped in something, it's very difficult to get that. It's very difficult to get that cherry flavour. So you might need, cherry is one of those few. Cherry, apple, peppermint, coconut, banana. They're the 5 that I normally use a little flavour drop for. Not to completely mask the flavour of it, but just to give it a little bit of a helping hand, all right? So, what else have we got? Happy days. Hi, Linda. See you later, Michelle. Well, as people are having challenges connecting. There's been issues with Instagram this week. TM, hello. Chocolate Spicy, how are you? Carol's joined us. Hi, Carol. I had a chat with Carol the other night. Carol sent me a photo. She won't mind me saying this, and she's like, I make so much mess. It's not a problem making mess. It's not a problem making mess, as long as you clean it up, right? Some chocolate's a messy business. I know I've had a lot of practice, and I know make it look easy. Slow down. These are a thing that like chefs seem to think they need to speed through shelling. If you've taken all that time to design a mould and spray it and paint it, why would you go ahead and shell at the speed of 1,000 gazelles? Like, just take your time and do it in individual sets, because once it's shelled, you can fill them quickly, not a problem at all. You can tap them quickly. I would recommend you do that. You can turn them out and package them quickly, but like, take your time shelling, because that's the accuracy, right? That's the accuracy that you're looking for. Hello Nadia, I'm good, thank you. Cherry pie is a really nice bonbon to do as well, right? So, Isle Bakes, I plucked up the courage to approach the biggest wedding fair organiser on the island today, hoping to try and get their fair next year. Got to go knock on doors, got to go and find your customers. The only thing I'd say, be careful with the wedding fairs is they expect you to have lots of freebies. I mean, I know there's people here who's experienced this. They expect you to have lots of freebies. Generally, the people that are going to wedding fairs are browsing and looking and not buying, and they're saving all their money for a wedding. So just be careful. You know, you want to try and get some sales from it. You want to try and get your name out there. If I'm honest, I think you should look at markets and then wait for the weddings to contact you. But it's not a bad thing to go to a wedding fair. Just make sure you got some product to sell and not so much for them to taste and eat, right? Because I know there's a few bridezillas will talk to you for hours about their perfect wedding chocolate and then not order, which is really frustrating. Gosh, grain chocolate, it's my first Christmas this year and it's amazing. Doing some salted caramels now for a fair tomorrow. Happy days. Some really good sales this year. I know people kind of went into October a bit of like trepidation. And the prices have gone up, and prices are always going up. People expect that. It's a handmade product. And I've said this so many times. You show bonbons and people they look like marble. Are they edible? Can you eat them? What are they made from? Is it chocolate? Are you sure that's chocolate? People are still intrigued by it. They are still intrigued by it. If coloured cocoa goes out of temper by overheating, can it be brought back to temper? How will adding micro help? Cocoa butter. The first thing is, what is in temper? It's in temper when it's got beta crystals formed in it. It forms beta crystals by cooling it very rapidly, so balance it over water and we would stir. Once we dip below 33.8, then it will start making beta crystals all the way down to 26 degrees where it starts to thicken. If you overheat it, as you warm it up, as you take cocoa, and I've had to move around this week, so I can't even reach the stuff over there. As that cocoa butter as you warm it up, you start damaging those beta crystals. Okay, it's how you warm it up. Of course, if it goes above 33.8, it's out of temper. It's got no beta crystals in it. You can't add micro to it until it's dropped below 33.8. Otherwise, you're just going to melt the cocoa butter, and it's no good. You're just diluting your coloured cocoa butter. It can cool down and you can warm it back up. You can make the decision to warm it over 33.8 and then take that whole mass, put it over water and cool it down again. Same with chocolate. When I'm using the big melting tanks, we'll have the chocolate at 35. We put it into the bowls. We'll add the silk to it. We'll blend that through. When it reaches 32, we will shell. And then that lot gets tipped back into the melting tank where it's above 34. Normally you need to give it a big blast of heat because of the cold chocolate that's going in. Once that's over 35 degrees, I've basically got melted chocolate that's not in temper. Then we will temper it again. So yeah, chocolate is reusable. You can keep going. You just keep going. And somebody said to me, if you keep adding silk to it, you're going to dilute it. Yes, if I took the same amount 7 times, I'd change it by 1 fluid drop. So if I was using a 3 drop, after 7 goes of the same chocolate, but it's not, you're mixing it back in. So it's exponential, isn't it? It doesn't change a huge amount each time, right? So you can. Chocodilic, I ended up with 20 flavours as I couldn't choose. Won't be doing that next year. No, 20 flavours is way too much. You'd be better to have 8 flavours, 8 amazing flavours, than try and do 20 where 5 or 6 are average, or 5 or 6 are difficult, or too many layers, too many different things, too much inventory on the shelf. as you put more and more layers into chocolate, the inventory on your shelf starts to get complicated. And the shopping list of just going to go, you know, if you were making caramel, I need to run to the shop to buy cream and sugar. Easy shopping list, right? In, out. When you start doing different layers, you start having to cherry pick all over the place, trying to find all the little elements that you need, and you overproduce here, you underproduce there, and you can get to the end with lots of bits and pieces left over and no way to use them, and they end up being waste. That's expensive. Overproduction is more expensive. Overproduction is the biggest area of waste. Okay, so I made too much and I couldn't use it. That's what overproduction is. That's really painful in restaurants, overproduction. And it's where you made 20 of something, but you only needed 16. So technically, you lost the sales of 4 items, and it's diluted what you made of 16 down to the price of being 12. So it's a double hit, right? Has anyone noticed that Bakelite doesn't have Belcolade doesn't have so no matter how you use it, or is it me? I also tried mixing it with Caliber, but just couldn't get it to temper. Can it? Belcolade's a good brand. Don't know. They the same chocolates, Linda. Belcolade do a lot of baking chips as well, which doesn't have cocoa butter in it as well. That would cause you a problem. I don't know. I'd have a look at it. Belcolade's a nice brand. I like Belcolade. Well-established brand up there with Caliber and all the other big players as well, right? Choco Chamley following us from Iran. Hello. Amazing. Thanks, James. I'll let you know how the cherry bakewell goes. I like cherry bakewell. Shine is not necessarily the chocolate. Shine will be the temperatures that you process the chocolate at. So we want to heat it over 33.8 to melt all those beta crystals. Then we want to temper it properly, shell, give it that dry stage. And then we want to either force it to retract or move it to an area where it will retract or shrink. Those beta crystals will shrink to form the shell, and it will mirror the surface it was touching. So polishing your moulds isn't what gives you shine. You need to clean the moulds because it will reflect the surface it's retracted or shrunk away from. But then equally, you got to observe all those temperatures as you go along, right? The more cocoa butter that's in a chocolate, the more brittle it is. So for anybody that uses, I'll give you an example. Like, you always get lovely shine if you're shelling with dark chocolate, but the shine is not so great when you're using a white chocolate. Like, if you sprayed a mould black and you shelled one in dark chocolate and one in white chocolate's a little bit more malleable, and it doesn't shrink away from the mould quite as well as the brittle dark chocolate. And it's the masses, the cocoa mass in there, it just makes it's an easier chocolate to use dark. White, if I'm using silk, we will always do 2% of silk in white chocolate. 1% in milk and dark. I don't use ruby, but and the caramelized we'll use 1%, but the white chocolate, we'll always do 2%. I just kind of want that. I just need it to be a little bit more brittle. It's a little bit malleable for me. I like working with it, but Emma there, ES Chocolates, how are you? Send some waves out quickly. Have you got questions? Fire away. Who else? We've got people in Denmark. Hello. You're welcome, Carol. Chocolates by Nana. Hello. I haven't seen you for a long time. How are you? When the chocolate shells don't crack out, I put them in the fridge for a little bit to get them to shrink. But when those that were put back in the fridge to crack out, they come out dull on top. Bruce, I saw your picture. The ones that crack, that's normally that's Moulds temperature too cold. Everybody suffers at this time of year. Is the mould temperature is too cold. We want a fairly cold room at like 14 degrees. Not a room. We want the chocolate to start to retract at 14 degrees, but spraying 20-21 degrees is fine. Shelling 20-21 degrees is fine. All of that's fine. We just don't want it to crystallize. If the mold is too cold, we won't melt that layer. Okay. If the mold is too cold, we won't melt that layer of color, and that will be stuck in the mold. So the dull spots. Here's the thing that I see regularly, and I see this with students when I'm teaching. is where they have their fingers on the actual moulds, and what they're doing when they're spraying. If you've got very, very warm hands, your fingers will melt that colour, no problem at all. So they'll spray, and when they turn them out, there's one or two, and it'll always be the third row or the fourth row, okay? And there'll be a couple of like dull patches on it, and I guarantee you it's fingers every single time. I mean, if they're dull on the top, if you spray cocoa butter too cold, you're gonna have a problem. If your mould is too cold and it hits that surface and it dries almost instantly, your mould is too cold, and that normally leads to dull. I'm trying to explain the science of it, but we've basically, like with black as an example, it's not fat soluble, it's a suspension, tiny micron size piece of pigment surrounded by cocoa butter, and they're floating. As the cocoa butter gets warmer, that sinks, okay, and as the cocoa butter gets cooler, they end up too congealed, and they don't spread a nice fine layer, and that's what will look dull. If you looked at it in a microscope, you'd find lots of all these raised edges instead of a nice smooth surface, right? I'm not suggesting you go out and get microscopes, but I look at this and I analyse this from a scientific point of view and say, what is it that's happened and why has that happened? I had something that I did this week. I want to show you these, right? So I did some hearts, and I polished the moulds, and I did taping, and you can see there's a streak along there. How shiny is my? Can everybody see themselves in the? Okay, but I got that one streak, and I looked at it, and I got the same one on there, exactly the same shape. So then I had a look at this. So I sprayed this mould again, and I shelled it again, and I turned the chocolate out, and it's exactly, so it wasn't me, it's something on the mould. It's something on the mould, and you can just about see this funny streak. And it was exactly the same on the other chocolate that I turned out, right? I sprayed it dark green, and I don't have that one because I've remelted it. I did some taping this week. Some shine, I don't like doing. This is just tape with luster dust behind it. It's actually something in the mould, right? It's a streak that's in the mould, and I don't know how to get that out. So I might have to resign that. I don't know what I've done to it. I don't know whether I scratched it or buffed it or done something, but I don't have a problem getting shine. But when I see the same pattern on both shells, like, I mean, it's exactly, I mean, it is like word for word the same. So Chocolates by the Macaroon, how are you? Sophia is saying, good evening everyone, I'd like to thank you all for the encouragement. Being the youngest Chocky Chat crew member makes me proud and positive. I hope you have enjoyed the chocolate and the lip gloss. I think we did get some lovely posts from people that enjoyed the lip gloss. It was kind of a nice treat. Sophia is the youngest member of Chocky. No, I think Seren's the youngest member of Chocky Chat crew, isn't she? Is it Seren or is it Coco? Coco's the youngest member. But yeah, well done, Sophia. It's nice, is like she'll come in here and she'll make chocolates, and I don't need to. It's nice. I don't need to monitor. She hits the temperatures. She follows the rules. I will help her occasionally with shelling because the moulds that she's got are really, they're Martitello, and there's nothing to hold on to. You can't even put grips. Like you can't. Even I can't turn them upside down. And they take quite some weight as well because they're 33 gram bars times 10. So there's 380 grams of chocolate in there. With nothing to hold on. All there is to hold on to is a tiny little lip, right? And it's just, I don't care how strong your hands are, you just can't, right? Am I proud? Yes, of course I'm proud, absolutely. So, James, we've noticed that sometimes when we use luster dust, some of the bonbons don't retract at all. Some come out and some don't come out at all. What could be the problem? That's going to be tempering. The luster dust won't make a difference. Luster dust won't make anything stick. Well, my one anyway. That one. Because there's no rice flake in it, so there's nothing to kind of cause it to stick. It will be tempering. I get this photo sent to me a lot, right? And I'll show you what it looks like. If I shell that one, there's a design that we got for this week. Some chocolates going out to some friends this week. If I shell that, and we'll leave it upside down till it goes dull, then it gets turned on its side, and if the room's cool enough, then we'll leave it to retract on its own. If not, we'll pop it in the fridge for a minute, 2 minutes. Maybe all of them, maybe 80% will retract, but 1 or 2 won't, and that doesn't really bother me. If 1 or 2 have, they all will. But we'll go ahead and fill. If I'm really busy, I won't even wait for that to retract. We will just let it go through its dull stage, and then we will fill. And then we will wait for that filling. So we'll give that, depending on the filling, we'll put that in the fridge for 15 minutes just to give it a shock of cold to start that crystallization of the filling. Then we'll cap them, and once they're capped, they'll get stacked in the fridge. They could be in there 30 minutes, 40 minutes to an hour, right? And then when we turn them out, they all turn out. If you're using all the same chocolate, if the majority of them have retracted, they all will. They all should. I can't see the luster dust being the problem. It will be the chocolate. But when you say, Philip, when you say it doesn't come out, does it come out eventually if you put it in the fridge for long enough? Because the measure of great chocolate is not that it's 100% crack out. That doesn't mean, like, and I think of it this way as well. If we're in a factory, I had this conversation with my friend Chris Harvey. If we were in a factory and we're doing 1,000 moulds, okay? We're shelling 1,000 moulds. And then they get turned on their side, and they go through that dry phase, and they go onto a big trolley, okay? Do you think the chefs in that factory have got time to go through every single mould and check every single one to see if they've retracted before they fill? No. They'll just go ahead and fill them, and it's really a case of trusting the process. I know the chocolate was tempered. I know that I filled them at the right temperature. I know my mould was the right temperature. I know it went through that dry phase. Some of them have retracted, they all will. If I drive the temperature down cool enough, we'll force it to retract. I know people that have wine fridges suffer with this because they put them in the wine fridge and kind of nothing happens for 5 or 6 hours. I will shell these tomorrow, and I'll put them in the fridge. I'm sure I'll put them in the fridge tomorrow on their sides. They're stood up. So we'll shell, tip everything out, we'll leave it upside down. We'll wait for that chocolate to go dull, could be 2 or 3 minutes. Then we'll turn it on its side so all the warm air can come out and we've got air circulating. We'll leave those for about, I want to say 10 minutes, could be 7 or 8 minutes, depends on. If the room's very cold, 7 or 8 minutes. If the room's slightly warmer, like 20 degrees, 10 minutes. Then we'll put them all in the fridge on their side. As soon as they start to retract, I'm taking them out and I'm filling them, okay? By the time I've capped them, they nil or will have retracted. But the measure of great chocolate is not 100% crack out. The measure of great chocolate is, do they taste nice? They're nice and glossy, they've got nice snap. 100% crack out is great for Instagram. Do a little dance, tell everybody you're amazing. If I leave the shells in the fridge for long enough, a day, they will retract, right? When I turn them out, they'll just get absolutely covered in moisture, condensation, and we'll leave them an hour, they'll go back to being lovely and shiny. So if the majority have retracted, the rest should, right? And it's really trusting that process, trusting the process. I think the damage to chocolate is the warm-up. So if you are doing chocolate seeding, adding the seed, stirring for a day till your shoulder falls off, and then at the right temperature you shell. If you then go to warm that chocolate up, if you are too aggressive with that heat, you will melt some of those beta crystals. And it's in temper when it has an abundance of beta crystals. So I would expect, when I'm turning stuff onto the silicone mats, I'm seeing it like dry and crystallize and curl up. If I leave the mat 10 minutes, the whole mat curls up. So I know the chocolate's good, right? It's trust that process. I can't think why the luster dust would. Maybe put too much in there, don't know. But it tends to compress down, right? Luster dust can look a little bit raised, but by the time you put the chocolate in there, it'll compress that down, right? Did I hear correctly? You use 2% silk for shelling with white. Yeah, I do. I use the Edelweiss. The Edelweiss is quite thick. W2, don't use a huge amount of W2, but like W2, yeah, we'll use 2%. White chocolate's just a little bit more malleable, right? It's a little bit more bendy. It's like if you've got, like, these are dark chocolate. These are dark chocolate. If I drop that from a height on here, I'd expect that to, it's quite brittle, I'd expect it to smash into lots of pieces. If that was white chocolate and I dropped it from a height, it's probably just going to break in two. White chocolate's not hugely brittle, and because it's not brittle, it doesn't retract as, I want to say purely, but what I mean is it doesn't retract or shrink as aggressively as milk or dark chocolate, right? So 2% silk. I use 2% silk. When using the Edelweiss, if I am shelling with W2, I don't generally, but if I was shelling with W2, yeah, 2%, not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. Yeah, there's other people here use 2% for milk and white. Yeah, depending on milk. Like if you've got a low cocoa mass milk chocolate, it's like 40%. It's probably going to be very, very sweet, and in which case it's going to be more malleable. Like dark chocolate's easier to use. One, we can use it at 32. I use all chocolates at 32. I don't differentiate. We use all of them at chocolate. It will behave as instructed, so we will shell all of it at 32. It's not a problem at all. I don't need to shell at 29, and we'd end up with other problems, right? So as Billy's saying there, better to be safe than sorry. Absolutely. Yeah, Linda, like the tempering charts, you know, I wouldn't adhere too much to the tempering charts. If you melt chocolate and it's above 33.8, you'll have melted the beta crystals on it. If you add seed to it, how good is the seed that went in there? Because if it's chocolate that was previously used, was it in temper, or is it just some chocolate that's set? It might not have the beta crystals in it. Beta crystals are also formed by stirring. If we stir too much the chocolate while we incorporate air into it too, it will over thicken, which we assume is over tempered. Just too much mass, too much cocoa butter mass of beta crystals in there. I don't know what the problem is. You know, tempering is tempering. It's recognising that you've got the amount of beta crystals that should be in there, and trusting that process. And trusting the process is temperature driven, right? Always. Ruth there. Ruth's joined us. Yes, chocolate's 2% milk, white and milk. Going to test that out. Thanks. I don't do it with milk, if I'm honest. If it's a low, like if it's a 40% milk chocolate, and there are a few, there's a 36% milk chocolate, and I would definitely do 2% in that. That's probably really, really malleable, bendy chocolate, right? Probably great for piping and lacing and doing that kind of thing, or using for stamps. Probably amazing for enrobing as well, because it will move. Bit elasticy, sticky. White, I can always do 2%. It's just it's happens particularly with the Edelweiss by ICAM. So it's quite a thick chocolate. It's less sweet. It's got more milk solids in it and less sugar in it, but it's not really high in cocoa butter. You know, like if I was looking at a dark chocolate. So 2%. Is it better to be safe than sorry? Yeah, I just want them retracted so I can feel them. Right. That 2% silk makes no difference to the end taste quality of the chocolate. It just means that those shells are coming out of the mould and I ain't messing around, right? Sophia's chocolate would be a great gift for Christmas. Yeah, she's going to produce some more this week. I'm away next week, so I'm in Bahrain next week teaching, which I'm really looking forward to. Still a couple of spaces, well there's a couple of, I think it's 2 spaces left, so caramel and creams, hoping our postal strike in Canada will end so I can order a lip gloss set. There are no lip gloss sets at the minute. Sophia's got both to make. I did buy her all the moulds. She's polished them delicately. She'll get onto some of those next week, I'm sure. I won't be here to assist her, so efforts on her. She's got lip glosses to do, got some adjustments. Somebody sent us a message. We got to adjust the labels a little bit, but it's only like 0.6. It's difficult. We are going to have some things made for her, so she can carry that product on. But it's, you know, it's first product to market, and there are lessons, and she's had to learn them, right? The postal strike in Canada, I don't know when that's going to end. It's causing everybody. There are millions and millions of packages just stacked up, and nobody's touching them. So we suspended all postage to Canada at the moment. So until that's all resolved. Bridget Fitz, how are you? I haven't spoken to you for a long time. Purple pralines, I think, in Germany. In the same mould, they will attract and some out, but I would put that mould not into the wine fridge, into a cold fridge. Or, you're in Austria, crack the window open and leave it in the cold. I swear it'll be if one or two have retracted, they all will, right? Chocolates, chocolate, if it's well mixed and it's well tempered, they will all retract. Might be at different speeds. I think that you get different thicker layers. One of the things I've always said, when people tip the chocolate out and start tapping and they start doing this, right? Chocolate doesn't know which way it's going, does it? So you end up with uneven layers, and you can have, if you've ever taken the shells out and weighed them all, you'll find the ones that are around all the edges are lighter. So mine are normally kind of that 2.1, 2.2 grams for a 13 gram mould, 4-drop chocolate, absolutely fine. I don't get too obsessive with the weights of them, but I know the outside ones can weigh significantly less, 20%, 25% less than the ones in the middle. The middle ones tend to be a little bit thicker. But the thicker the chocolate is, the easier it tracks. The thinner the shell, the less tensile strength there is for it to retract. The more facets there are on a mould, so the more edges, the more it's got to work. So we need a chocolate that's very brittle, so it'll pull away from everything. This is why we don't like sharp-edged moulds. No. They're a nightmare to polish. Where is it? That one. I made these this week. That is the only one that's left. How's my capping? Oh, that'll do, won't it? That's the only one left because some young ladies found them, and they got eaten. I love this mould. Also hate this mould. Love the mould, hate the mould. It's a little ridge right in the middle there. Okay, on that dot. So it's where the O is, L-O. Okay. And it's too raised. So even when I shelled with a 3-drop chocolate and it wasn't a really thin shell, that little bead was still sticking through. And you can see, I'm hoping that you can see right in the centre of the little hole there, there's little chips. And it's an absolute little air bubble there, look. Love that mould, hate it as well. Hate cleaning it. And I don't use the word hate very often, but love it and hate it. ES Chocolates, use your technique of fridge retraction on our recent Christmas collection, game changer. Yes, it is, Emma. Here's another one. When you're spraying, so I sprayed all these today because I need to make some chocolates. That one is, I can't quite show you. When I turn these out tomorrow, I'll show you. Because this is Red Galaxy, which I've not used a huge amount of, right? So that's Red Galaxy, and it's red silver, but it looks really, really nice from this side. Really, I know I test them all, but I've never used a Red Galaxy on its own, just sprayed it on its own. We normally do ripples and other bits and pieces with it. As I was spraying, that goes in the fridge. Stood up on it. We'll spray the mould. We'll give it a wipe. That'll go in the fridge. Stood up at the bottom. And we'll just get that cocoa butter to dry. And they have 20-30 seconds in there is more than enough just to leave it to crystallise. And then we'll leave them out for an hour and then we'll shell. So, if I'm in a real hurry, they'll go in the fridge. and as soon as they're out, I'll touch test, make sure it is dry enough, and yeah, we'll go ahead and shell, right? So fridge retraction, yes, it is a game changer. You shouldn't need to wait hours and hours for chocolate to retract. Drop it in the fridge. What you don't want to do is put it in the fridge for so long that it absorbs all the moisture. It goes in the fridge until it's a cold fridge, right? Even if it's, mine's set at 8 degrees, but there's no reason to go any lower than that. They'll go in the fridge at 8 degrees. A minute and a half. Once I see the majority of them, when I bring them back to room temperature, that cold is still there. So you can watch all of them start to kind of creak and crack and retract on the top here. So use the fridge. We know chocolate is fairly stable at room temperature, 20-21 degrees. Perfectly good to work in. If you want them to retract, this is a challenge that people have with wine fridges. They don't drop. Wine fridges are for wine. And if you've bought one, that's absolutely fine. But the temperature just doesn't drop low enough, quickly enough to force chocolate to shrink. So it's good for storing chocolate. It's good for storing chocolates that have already retracted. If you've got moulds that have already retracted, absolutely fine. Put them in there. They'll be absolutely stable, because wine fridges, you can control humidity as well. What I wouldn't do is use them to force shells to retract, because one, it's not too cold enough, and two, every time you open the fridge, the motor doesn't kick on quick enough, because what we don't want with wines is massive fluctuations of temperature. So we don't want the fridge door, you've got red wines in there, you don't want to shut the fridge door and it suddenly sucks all the temperature out and drops it down to 12 degrees. Wines and things will sour, right? So wine fridges are great for storing the final product, and they are great for storing shells that are painted, okay? But if you want to use them to force shells to retract, it's just not quite fast enough. It's not quite cold enough, right? So this time of year, Northern Hemisphere, crack a window open, let the cold air get the shells, absolutely be fine. So how long do you have to leave the moulds in a wine fridge capped before I can turn it out, assuming my tempering was bang on? Susie, I will cap and I'll put them in the fridge until I've finished all the moulds. So if we're doing 40, 50, 60 moulds, they could be in there an hour. 15 minutes. I think the thing is, the longer that they're in the fridge, the colder they get, which is absolutely fine. When you turn them out, you will get a mist of condensation on them. Try and avoid touching them. Let them come back to room temperature. They'll go back to being beautifully shiny. Clean hands, gloves on if you need to, and then you can put them into the trays and get them off the table, and then go with the next one. 15 minutes is more than enough. More than enough. Absolutely more than enough. Bruce is saying, if you have a 4-drop chocolate, do you drop the shelling temperature of the chocolate or leave it in the mould a little longer? I would leave, no, don't drop the temperature here. I would still shell at 32. We'll leave it in the mould longer. Like, for example, well, I broke that one. For example, these ones, that was a 4-drop chocolate, and I filled the mould, and it probably sat in there for a good... So I filled the mould and then scraped off what I didn't need. And we gave it a little bit of tap on the table, rolled it round a little bit. I probably left that in there for a minute, okay? I don't want to drop the temperature of it. I need the temperature of the chocolate to melt that layer of cocoa butter. If that chocolate temperature is too low, it won't melt that layer, so that when you tap everything out, you'll be left with big chunks in the mould. If your cocoa butter is not tempered, you see little flecks of colour everywhere, okay? So that's cocoa butter tempering. If you see big chunks left in there, that's normally the mould was too cold, or the chocolate was too cold, or both. All right, we don't want, you know. I keep saying this. The graph that's on the side of the bag is the most misleading piece of information ever written, Bruce. And I know we talked about that here. If you spray some moulds with colour and then try and shell at 29 degrees, share a photo of me of how bad it looks when you turn the mould out. Right? It just. Majority of the chocolate we still left in the mould, it's just not going to come out. There's not enough temperature to melt that. And the thicker that layer of cocoa butter, the warmer or the longer it needs to be in there. Particularly like if you're hand painting sponges, that kind of thing, it tends to do very, very thick layers. And I go through this with Sophia. You know, part of her learning class is recognising that she's painted too thick of a layer, because she does sponges. Although the next lot of makeup I think that she does is going to be a mix of the white gold and deep space and another colour, and then she's got to start airbrushing everything rather than doing sponges. So airbrushing puts a thinner layer down, and it's a bit easier to control. But the thicker that layer of cocoa butter, the warmer the chocolate needs to be. And then if you've got 4-drop chocolate, thin shells don't retract very well, so you just need to leave that in the mould a little bit longer. No different to, did I have the mould out here? I was doing the eggs. I was going to do some egg designs, but I'm going to run out of time this week. When people are doing the Easter eggs, or if you've got moulds that are this size, you want a slightly thicker shell. If you've got a 3-drop, that's absolutely fine. But if you've got a 4-drop chocolate, just leave it in there much longer, even up to a minute. And then when you turn it out, we're not going upside down. If we turn that upside down, see how the inside of that one's lovely and smooth, okay? If I turn that upside down, we'd end up with these like stalactites, right? So we'd have all these knobbly bits in the middle, okay? So what we're actually doing is from the thick end, not the thin end, from the thick end with the eggs, we're just tilting it up and letting it scrape down, okay? And then tapping it that way, and then when the majority of it's out, we will tap that way and scrape. The other point that I was making earlier, you know, I didn't finish this point. When we filled that with chocolate and we turn it upside down, you get scrape batter. People start doing this, right? And the chocolate doesn't know which way it's going. You end up with having shells. When you tip everything out, keep that as level as you can, right? And scrape, yeah? You tap and scrape. If you keep tilting this, you're going to end up with different size, you know. If we tip the chocolate in there and tilt it that way, all the edges on this side will be thicker. The edges on this side, on the bottom side, will be thinner. We just keep it as level as you can. Tap everything out, okay? Scrape it. When you're happy with it, check it, turn it upside down, clean that surface, give it a really good scrape. Then it goes upside down. Leave it to the side, all right? This tapping the mould and rolling it everywhere is just going to cause you. Chocolate doesn't know what it's doing. It doesn't know which side it's coming out. We just want that chocolate to flush out in one go. No different when you start to do the eggs. We wouldn't turn that upside down. We just turn it over on its side. Let everything drip out. Assist it with some tapping or vibration, and then you'll end up with the bigger moulds. You'll end up with a nice smooth surface, look, right? And there's still a ridge there, look. Okay, so it's kind of understanding what's going on. With this one, just don't. Just don't. I bring that one out once a year just to humble me. That's what I do. Yeah, the lip moulds. Yeah, that's another one. Too many edges. Okay. Right, it is past. I'm going to get away. I've got a lot to do. It's been a busy week. Actually, you know, one of the things that we did this week, we do cleaning. So we emptied this week. Like, everything came out. Absolutely everything. From everything. I mean, it's that 6-month clean, like deep clean. So we clean daily, we clean weekly, we clean monthly, we pick elements, we pull it outside, we'll give it a clean. But every 6 months, it's literally everything out. We redo the edges, we redo the floor. The whole lot came out this week. And Rania and I are, as well as everything else, we're like broken. Which is why the lighting looks different. It's all a little bit different. And I've got all the bigger bottles on this side. And we just had a major sort out. And just like, you know, what are we doing? How do we want it different? And it's quite nice. So everybody have a lovely week. I will. I may well do Chocy Chat next week. I'll be in a different country. Maybe different backdrop. But I will certainly try and find a way to do Chocy Chat next week. I don't know where it will be from, and I'll work out the time zone, but I'll be in Bahrain, so we fly early next week. I've got a class out there, which I'm really looking forward to. I will share some stories. I will share some views. I will share some of the things we do. I love teaching. I absolutely adore teaching. It's one of the things I am the most excited about, particularly when I have students who've got endless problems and we try and solve those things. So I'll see you next week. Look after yourselves. Take a break, right? If you've got all your sales are done, just learn to take a break and write notes down. What worked? What did I enjoy? What did I like? What would I do again? Don't focus on what went wrong. Focus on what you would do better. Okay. Mindset is absolutely everything. Have a great week. I will see you next week. Be nice to people. Be kind to people, especially those closest to you. Episode 161 next week. Have a good one.